Hi everyone, and welcome back to our crafting tutorial series in Unreal Engine 4. Previously we've set up our menu and inventory for our crafting menu, so I can pick up items and display them in my menu here. Now we're going to go through the process of actually crafting an item using some ingredients. So we'll go through how to create one, and then from there you can go on and create as many as you like. So we can go through a process of making a bit of medicine. So for this we need to actually make the item for the medicine. So I'm going to right click on my item parent and create child blueprint class and go item healing flask. Okay, and open this up and enter the details for the item itself. So name here, go healing flask or healing tonic, we'll call it. And description, can heal the drinker by a considerable amount. Warning, side effects included. And the category for this is going to be medicinal. And tick the is craftable button. And on the thumbnail, I'm going to drag my option I've already brought in. So we're going to call it this one. And hit compile. And I haven't got a mesh, but you'd add a mesh to this if you want into the game so you can pick it up off the floor. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to add one later on. So there's an item healing flask. And let's say, for example, we want to craft this using these herbs. So for craftable items, we need to create a new variable for these items. So the variable is going to be a map detailing what items they are and how many it requires of that item. So for that, I'm going to go into my item parent and add it there. Saves me adding it to every single item going forward. So on the variables here, I'm going to go new variable and go crafting recipe. And variable type for this is going to be item parent class reference. Click on the little ball icon and change it to a map. And you want the second one to be an integer. So it's going to be what item you need and how many does it need. I'm going to tick compile and close that. Now if I go to the healing flask, I can go into here and go new variable. Sorry, not new variable. Delete, sorry. Go into class defaults and you'll see crafting recipe 0 map elements. I'm going to go add new element. I'm going to choose a green leaf and I say I need 3 of them. Okay. Hit compile and we'll leave that for now. So the idea is that when we hover over the item as a option in our inventory, we can craft it if we have the correct items available. But at the moment, if I play the game, you can see that it's not going to show up in here as an option, even though I've got 0 of them in my backpack. So for crafting items, they're going to show all the various options available, even if there's 0 of them in your inventory. And then when you hover over them, you'll be able to click and change that by crafting them. So we need to find a way to add a empty slot with the icon there. So for these ones in particular, these are going to work slightly differently. Okay, so in our crafting menu UI, we want to be able to select our category and change its contents over here on the right hand side. And then it'll update those contents with how much in the quantity we have in our inventory map. So in your inventory category UI, we go to the graph and we're going to add a new variable. It's going to be a boolean called is crafted inventory. Actually go category. Is crafted category. And by default we're going to leave it as false. Okay. But we're going to use this in a split over here. So the split is going to be when we do this for each loop. Now the for each loop by default is going to just add them based on our inventory in our inventory component. What we want to do instead is do a for each loop based on our custom list we got on our category here. So put this into a branch and put that before we get the keys. Like so. Then on false is where it's going to be different. Now on false we're going to use our own custom map. So go to new variable and do crafted items. And the variable type for this would be item parent. and this will be an array. Drag this out and choose get. Now you want to do a for each loop for this and put it into false. Oh, sorry, got it the wrong way. Whoop. Put it up the top. Oh my god, there you go. That'd be true, this be false. Just make that a bit more obvious. We'll move that down there, like so. Okay, so is crafted category is going to, if it's true, go up here. If it's false, it'll continue what we've done before. So if it's true, on this crafted items list, we're going to do basically what we've got here. Okay, but without the checking of the category, because we don't need to do that because we're custom choosing this. So I'm going to copy this and paste it up here. The item element is going to go into that there, and we click compile. Okay, now we've done that, we can close this and go back to our crafting. Also, not close it. We have to make sure our is crafted category is set to editable, and our crafted items is also set to editable. Hit compile. Oh, and we also need to change our refresh to also hit this for each loop here as well. So to do that, to hit both, we do a sequence. So then 1, then 0 will go there, then 1 will go here. And hit compile. So this will create all those blank slots. And on the slot, it's going to get the inventory and find whether or not we have a value. If it doesn't, then it'll be 0. Okay, so if we go to our crafting menu now, I can click on my throwables, I can tick the is crafted category and add my own options here. So I don't actually have any, so I can delete this. But medicinal we can do. So I'm going to tick is crafted category there and add our healing flask. Compile. So now if I push play, healing flask is going to appear with 0 on it. I pick up items, and now I've got plants and flasks there. So the next trick is I want to be able to click on this item and craft it. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to go into my inventory slot and add some code on this to allow us to do that. So on the slot, we're going to create a tick event. Try it again, a tick event. And on a tick event, we're checking or not whether this widget is hovered. So search for is hovered and put that as a boolean into a branch. So if it's true, we want to be able to determine whether or not when we push a key that this is the item we want to click on. So before we crack on with that, we need to set up the actual pushing of a key. So let's go and create that input. So I'm going to edit product settings, input, and in fact we'll use the interact key. We will use the same key for that. We'll go into our slot. So we want to be able to store what item we're currently hovered over. We're then going to create a custom event called craft item. On the craft item, we're going to use this hovered item event variable and convert it to a validated get. So we'll only craft an item if this is a valid value. The item we're going to craft is going to go into our player's UI. So we want to get player character, cast to first person character, get inventory component, and then add to inventory. And that's all going to be connected up to the is valid. Now if you like, we could also chuck this cast bit onto a begin play here, or construct rather. Saves us calling it out time and time again. So we'll promote that to a variable and call it player character. So on the craft item, I drag the player character out instead, picking it up to the add to inventory. So the add to item to be added, is going to come from this hovered item here. So I can drag out and search for item, and number is going to be 1. We're then going to call this refresh inventory event. So come out of here and do refresh inventory. So there's the function. We now need to be able to call it. So let's go into our player controller. And in here, we're going to set up our input action here. So we're going to use the interact here. So we're going to go interact action event. But because our player character already has an interact event, we want to make sure that this does not consume the input. So the input carries on through to that player character. So up top, make sure you untick consume input. Then on press, we're going to go into heads up display, get crafting menu UI, and then from there, take it to craft item. But remember, it's only going to do it if that value is valid. So let's set that value in our slot. So I'm going to go back to my item slot. On the slot, we're going to get hold of our menu. And the way we're going to do that is on the pre-construct, we're going to drag our, get player controller, cast to your my player controller. Then from there, we can get heads up display and get the crafting menu. I'm going to promote that to a variable and call it crafting menu. Like so. On the crafting menu now, we can go onto our tick and drag that out and get it. And here we can set the hovered item to this one. So self. Then on the false, we're going to need to turn it off. Now the way we're going to turn it off is first of all compare whether or not the current hovered item is the same as this. So let's get the hovered item and see if it is equal to this current object. This will be a branch. Let's just space that a bit. And if it's true, then we're going to set the hovered item as a blank value, making it invalid. So that way, only turn it off if you unhover the current hovered item. Okay, so hit compile, and let's close that. And to test this out, I'm going to go into crafting menu in the graph here, and we'll do a simple tick just to test this out. And in there, we'll do a print string of the hovered item. Okay, so I can hit play, pick up some of these, and image slot UI C3, C2. Okay, so you can see it's working with the hovered, and I can let go and it'll stop printing to the screen, like so. Okay, so what I can do now is do the crafting part. So let's just get rid of that tick that we just done to test that. And let's test the crafting of this. So go and test that out. We can go into the menu, hover over my medicine here, push E. It's adding both. The reason why it may be doing that is in my inventory category. Yep, so rather than a sequence, because we're not doing both, we're going to do one of them. We're going to put that into a branch. And again, its crafted category is going to go there. I'll tell you what would be better is putting that There you go. That solves that issue. So now, if I were to craft it, push E, it will now increase it. Okay, so it's adding them, but obviously it's doing it without checking the recipe. So let's get that working with the recipe instead. So let's go on to my item. So my item here has the crafting recipe of item green leaf 3. So we need to compare this with an inventory query, which we already set up. So on the crafting menu, so to check whether or not we have the right recipe, we're going to be using a new function. So go new function, and we go check craft recipe. And this is going to require one input. And that's going to require the recipe. And the recipe is going to be the item parent class reference as a map with integer as a second value. Okay, so with the crafting recipe, we're going to drag this out and get the keys, and then do a for each loop of that array. Now, this may have you could have multiple different items on it, so we need to set up a local variable to determine whether or not ultimately this thing is going to be successful or not. So go local variables, new one, and go is complete. Okay, so is complete by default is going to be true. So we're going to get the array element, and we're going to use that with this recipe with a find to find the quantity. Then we're also going to get the player character's inventory component, and get the inventory. It's not inventory, get inventory. Do a query, sorry. And the item we're looking for is the array element, and the quantity is going to come from the find. If we're going to find it successful, we're going to put it into a branch. And as I said, is complete is going to be true by default. So success is false, but that's the only time we want to change is complete. So set is complete to false. Hit compile, and then go. Oh, sorry, I need to add an output. So click on the start, add new output, and go valid recipe. That'll be a boolean. That's fine. So I'm giving that error because it was by default a map, which we don't want. And then I completed, drag that up, and drag in your is complete local variable as the valid recipe response. Okay, so now what's happening here? We're cycling through all the keys in our recipe, and we're going to check how much we have in our inventory component with the use of the query inventory. If it is successful, we're going to ignore and changing the is complete variable, so it's going to carry on as it is. But if it comes across an item that we don't have, it's going to change it to false. And then on completed, it's going to output whether it is true or false. So with that compiled, I'll go back to my event graph. And I've got craft item. I'm going to drag my check craft recipe and connect it up in between the add to inventory and the get. Now the recipe is going to come from the item defaults. So go from item, get class defaults, and plug in your recipe. So this thing required 3 green leaves. Okay, so we only want it to do it if they have those 3 green leaves. So I'm just going to put in a simple branch to valid recipe, and to only add to inventory if it's true. Now to test this out, if I was to go into my menu, push E, I have nothing. But if I go into, oh, I push escape by accident. If I go and pick up these items first, then I push E, it adds items. So the very last step we've got to do is remove from inventory the 3 items we're using. So we're going to do that in the next episode. So join us in the next episode over on patreon.com/RyanLaley right now, where just $1 will get access to that video plus many, many others. Big shout out and thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon and YouTube members. This wouldn't be possible without you guys, so big thank you to all of you. If you like what I do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. And if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them down in the comments down below. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.